Today we're going to talk about Newton's law of motion. So let's recall the three laws. First law, every object will remain at rest or in uniform motion in a straight line unless compelled to change its state by the action of an external force. Second law, Newton's second law of motion is F equals ma, or force is equals to mass times acceleration. Now guys, we need to label this force as net force. Kaya ang kaning formula guys is for net force. And sa isa ka object daghan kay force nga nag-act sa iyaha. So hindi ta gusto nga magsagol-sagol ang atong formulas and masayop-sayop ang ato ang pag-solve. So the formula M times A is for net force. Next is third law. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So let's imagine guys, this is a table, no? This is a table ay natay gibutang nga object diri sa table. Ana. Now this object is at rest, and first law states that when an object is at rest, it will remain at rest upon acted by external force. So even if the object is at rest guys, nadya po na siya mga forces nga nag-act sa kana nga object. So unsa man nga mga forces? One of the forces guys is called weight. So weight is always directed downward guys. So how can we get the weight? So let's imagine this object is 5 kilogram. The formula for weight is equals to m times g, or mass times gravity. Now in solving the weight of this object, we can simply substitute the value for mass, 5 kilogram, multiplied by the value of gravity, which is 9.81 meter per second squared. Now we can get the value for weight is equals to 49.05 kilogram times meter per second squared, or the unit for forces is called N, or Newton, as honored kay Sir Isaac Newton. Now guys, as the third law states that in every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now if the weight is pushing this object downward, we also have another force that is pushing this object upward. You guys know? This called normal force. When the object touches the ground or the table, there is also a force that is opposite to the weight guys. So muna siyang gitawag na tuog normal force. So whatever the value of the weight, the value of the normal force is the same. So unsay value sa atong sa weight, natay value sa weight nga 49 newton. So sa pagkuha sa value sa atong normal force which is directed upward, that is also 49 newton, guys. So if we add another object here sa table which is also 5 kilogram, so mausab na atong value sa weight. Atong weight guys mahimo na siya og 98 newton. So unsa may buhaton sa atong normal force? The normal force will adjust, making its value the same as the weight. So if ang weight is nahimo ng 98 newton, ang atong normal force will also be 98 newton. So if we keep adding an object to the table, mag-add patagdaghan guys, no? So eventually the weight will increase. So what will happen to the table? The table will eventually guys break. So but possible nga ang kaning iyang mga tiil sa table kay ma-break and mayabo ang kaning object nga gipatong sa table. So what is the reason guys? The reason for that is the normal force guys, it will keep adjusting para ma-the same ang value sa iyang weight. Pero the moment nga ang normal force is ma-meet niya yung maximum nga force, is dili na siya ka-adjust para sa mo-increase pa sa weight if ma-meet na niya yung maximum force. So eventually the object here will go down, making the table break, guys. And also if the second law guys states that the net force is equals to ma, there is another formula for net force guys. So basically the net force is the sum of all the forces guys. So net force is the sum of all the forces. So if we will get the net force here, let's imagine again that the weight of the object is 98 Newton and the normal force is 98 Newton, guys. So when the object is balanced, guys, no, it is at rest. So same sila, 98 Newton. So in getting the net force, we can simply add this force, the Fn and the weight. So these two are vector quantities, meaning the direction is important, guys. So if the weight is going down, we can simply put this value as negative. And if the normal force is going up, the 98 Newton is positive. Meaning, if we add the two, so Fn plus negative W, then we will get the net force. Or, in simplifying this, Fn minus W. So, if we will get the net force for this object, guys, we will simply substitute the value. We have 98 Newton, and the value for weight is 98 Newton. Meaning that our net force is 0. If our net force is 0, guys, meaning the object is either at constant velocity or at rest. Meaning if our net force is 0, then our acceleration is 0. So if we will get the acceleration of this object, guys, no? So let's use this formula, no? Let's try if magawas pa jud ang 0. So the value of our net force is 0, and then the value of the mass is 5. 10 kilograms na siya. Kaya ni-add daw 5 kilograms, guys. So the value of the mass is 10 kilogram. So let's get the value of acceleration. So divide this by 10, divide by 10. So acceleration is 0. So when the net force, guys, is 0, the object is at constant velocity or at rest, meaning the acceleration is 0. Another example, guys. So let's imagine this is a ball. This is a ball. And we exert a force to the ball horizontally to the right, guys. So this force is called, let's say this force is called Fa. No, guys, no? So when we exert a force to the ball, the first law states that, guys, an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted by an external force, guys, no? So if ato ning applyan og force to the right ang isa ka ball, so by the first law makaingon ta nga ang ganing ball move siya at a constant velocity forever, guys, no? So in real life, if patira na to ang ball, eventually the ball will stop, guys. So what was the reason? The reason for that is if we exert a force, there is always a force nga mo fight back opposite direction to the force that we exerted, and that is called friction force, frictional force, guys. The frictional force is always opposite to the force that is exerted to an object, guys. If makaingon ta nga naman day frictional force, the moment nga mo exert ta og force sa ka object, so ngano man nga ang object mo still move gihapon. The meaning of that is the force exerted here is much larger than the frictional force. That is why the ball tends to move to the right, and but it will eventually stop, guys, no? So if this is our object, napud tay mga laing forces nga nag-act ani. So this force is called horizontal force, the Fa, and frictional force. Now napud tay gitawag nga force nga weight, guys, no? The moment nga mo touch na sa ground, nanatay weight force ana niya. And if natay weight force, na mo fight back niya nga force, that is called normal force. So that is the forces of the object, guys, no? So in getting the F net, guys, in getting the net force is the sum of all the forces that is acted on the object. So in solving for the net force, we can simply add all the forces, guys. So let us not forget their direction. That is very important, guys, no? So Fa is going to the right, meaning that is positive, guys, no? and the frictional force FF is going to the opposite direction, going to the left. That is negative. Next, the normal force is going upward. We can make that as positive Fn. And lastly, the weight is going down. That is negative W. So this is another formula for F net, guys. So that's basically if mo draw ta og Cartesian plane natay x value or horizontal na pud tay y value. Here is negative, positive, positive, negative. So that directions, guys, is the same as the forces in this object. So we will not forget that there is an easy formula for net force, which is mass times acceleration, guys. So the mass times acceleration is for net force, guys, not for frictional force, not for the force exerted, not for weight, and not for normal force. So if we multiply mass times acceleration, that formula is for net force, guys. Let's not forget that para dili ta makasave sayop, guys. So let's proceed to an example. So problem number 1, guys. A 5 kilogram block is pushed across a frictionless surface with a force of 10 Newton. What is the acceleration of the block? So let's draw, guys. So a block is 5 kilogram is pushed across a frictionless surface. So natay friction nga FA is equals to 10 Newton. Mana siya ang ato ang gi-exert nga force sa object. The question is, what is the acceleration of the block? Guys, no? So we can apply the formula for net force is equals to MA. Now, the given here is only mass and then FA. This force, guys, ang kaning FA nga force, kani siya is the force exerted by the object. And the formula is net force. So we cannot directly substitute the 10 Newton here sa formula because this is for net force and this is the force exerted. So let us identify other forces that is acted on the object, guys. So there is also a weight kay ang object ni touch sa surface, and there is also a normal force. And nabatay force acted in this direction, guys. Ang ating force exerted is mana siya ang direction niya to the right. And nabatay force, guys, nga nag-oppose sa kaning direction sa atong exerted force. Actually, nag-state siya diri nga frictionless surface. So wala tay force nga opposite direction sa atong force exerted, guys, no? So ang frictional force is 0. As the states that it is frictionless. So what is asked in the problem is ang acceleration, guys, no? To get the acceleration na natay mass pero wala pa tay net force, guys, no? So di kaning 10 Newton mo na siya ang force nga na atong na-exert sa kaning object. So let's get the net force. So as I stated, guys, nga ang net force is the sum of all the forces or summation of all the forces, guys, no? So ang weight, guys, og ang normal force is the same value. Pero ang normal force is positive while ang weight is negative. So in adding these two, zero rang gihapon ang ilahang sum, guys. So atong mabilin nga formula sa net force is FA frictional force, guys, no? So let's solve for net force. So net force is equals to FA, as the frictional force opposes direction, negative na siya, no? So natay FA nga 10 newtons while natay frictional force nga 0. So ato ang net force is equals to 10 newton. As we can see, the same value for net force is for the force exerted, guys, no? Pero this is not always the case, guys. So that's why I showed you how we can get the net force to have this formula, guys, no? Kay if atong i-substitute diri ang 10 newtons diri sa formula diretso, makakuha pud gihapon tag Same answer because ang ato ang surface is frictionless, but this is not always the case. That is why I showed how to get the net force for us to be able to use this formula. So nanatay net force. Now we can use this formula, guys. F net equals ma. Pila tong value sa net force natay 10 newtons is equals to the value of our mass is 5 kilogram times acceleration. To get the acceleration, let's divide both sides by 5. This will cancel out. 10 divided by 5 is equals to 2. So the acceleration is 2 meter per second squared. So next example, guys. A farmer is lifting some moderately heavy rocks from a field to plant crops. He lifts a stone that weighs 180 newton. What force does he apply if the stone accelerates at a rate of 1.5 meter per second squared? So, let's illustrate the given, guys. So, let's imagine, guys, this is the stone. No? So, the stone weighs 180 newton. So 180 newton represents the weight force, guys. So a farmer is lifting, meaning na siya force nga gi-exert padung sa babaw, guys, no? So muna ato ang FA, the force exerted by the object. And then another given is the acceleration. We have the acceleration of 1.5 meter per second squared. The question is, what force does he apply if the stone accelerate at a rate of 1.5 meter per second squared? You know, guys, no? So, the missing here, or ang gipangita dire is the FA. Kani, guys. FA. Guys, no? Ang gipangita is FA, not the net force, but the force exerted by the farmer sa stone. Mano siya ang gipangita. So, in solving FA, kung sa nato ang net force sa kaning object, guys. So as I stated, net force is equals to ma. Now natay weight, guys, pero wala tay mass, you know? So we can extract the mass sa kaning weight. So the formula for weight is mass times gravity. So let's substitute the value for weight and gravity for us to get the value of mass. So pila man nato ang weight? Natay 180 newton, mass is missing, while ang gravity na to is 9.81, guys. So let's divide both sides by 9.81 for us to get the value for mass. Cancel. 180 divided by 9.81 is natay value sa mass nga 18.3486 kilogram. I highly suggest, guys, nga dili pa ta mag-round off if dili pa final answer. So pwede ra ta mag-round off og up to 4 decimal places kay that will not affect our final answer. Pero dili ta pwede mag-round off of up to 2 decimal places kay maka-affect na siya sa ato ang final answer. So now we have the mass, we can get the net force kani F net equals ma. So let's substitute the value. Mass na to is 18.3486. The acceleration is 1.5. So the value for net force is 27.5229 Newton. So guys, this is only the net force, and ang ipangita sa problem is ang FA, or the force that is exerted sa ato ang object, guys. So how can we get this? So as I stated, guys, that in getting the net force, another formula for that is the sum of all the forces, guys, no? The sum of all the forces. So what unsa man atong mga force diri? Natay force nga weight, nasa tay force nga FA. So ang direction sa atong force nga FA is above, that is positive, while ang direction sa atong weight is padung down, that is negative. In adding that two, man siya ang magawas nga formula, guys. So we can get the, let's substitute the value, guys. So na naman tay net force nga 27.5229. So let's substitute that. 27.5229 is equals to what ay value sa FA, pero natay value sa net force nga I mean weight force nga 180, guys, no? So transpose 180 to the left, that will make 180 a positive, equals FA. Thus na makakuha na ta sa value sa FA, which is 207.5229. So ang kani is final answer naman, maka round off na ta to the nearest 2 decimal places. Natay value nga force 207.52 force exerted sa ato ang object. So next problem, guys. A 10 kilogram block is pushed with a force of 30 Newton across a surface with a coefficient of friction of 0.2. What is the acceleration of the block? So let's draw, guys. Let's illustrate the problem. So natay object nga block nga 10 kilogram, and a 10 kilogram is pushed with a force of 30 Newton. Sa pala yung given, guys. Natay coefficient friction of 0.2. Now, ang kani siyang 0.2, guys, is only the coefficient of friction. This is not the frictional force. Now, the force that is acted opposite to the direction of the FA is called frictional force, guys, no? So ang given na to is coefficient of friction ra, not the frictional force. Now to get the frictional force, we can use the formula coefficient of friction multiplied by the normal force. So first, kung ano na to ang normal force for us to get the frictional force, guys, no? So what is the value of normal force? So as I said ganiha, that the value of the normal force is equal to the value of the weight, guys, no? So for us to get the value of the normal force, we must first get the value for weight. So the formula for weight is mass times gravity. So we can simply substitute the value. The mass is 10 kilograms and the gravity is 9.81. There we can get the value for weight, that is 98.1 Newton. So weight is 98.1 Newton. Therefore, ang value sa ato ang normal force is also 98.1 Newton, guys. So ang value sa ato ang frictional force is, we can now solve for that, guys. So the coefficient value is 0.2 while the normal force is 98.1 Newton. So solving for frictional force, we can get 19.62 Newton. So nanatay value sa frictional force. Now ang ipangita sa problem is what is the acceleration of the block, and the only formula for acceleration is F net is equals to ma. But ang sa atong mga forces diri, natay FA, natay FN, na natay frictional force, napud tay weight, pero wala tay F net, guys. So dili ta ka substitute ani. For us to use this formula, we will first get the net force. So as I've said, guys, that the net force is equals to the summation of all the forces. Seeing the forces, guys, no, the direction for weight is going down, meaning 98.1 is negative, while the normal force 98.1 going up is positive. Here, going to the right is positive, while the frictional force opposes the direction for our force that is acting on the block. So this is negative here, guys, no? So in adding this, all the forces, we must not neglect the direction of the forces, guys. So first, Fn. So Fn is positive while weight is negative. Another one is Fa is positive while Ff, or frictional force, is negative, guys. So substitute the value, we can get the F net. Fn is equals to 98.1, weight is negative 98.1, plus Fa is 30 while our frictional force is 19.62 Newton. Now guys, if our object is only moving in a horizontal motion, in solving the F-net, we can simply cancel these two, as the weight is the weight and natural and the weight is and the normal force is the same value, and ang weight is negative while the normal force is positive, no? Inig-add na to sa duha, zero ra gyapon. So when an object is only moving in horizontal motion, the formula for net force, guys, no, makancel ra man gyapon ni nato siya, cancel na siya. We can simply add the two forces, which is the horizontal forces, nga the force acting on the block, which is FA, and the frictional force, in simplifying guys, para dili na tas atong pagkuha sa net force. So FA minus frictional force, kana na lang para mas dali guys. Makancel ra man siya po ng weight and normal force. So FA is 30 while the frictional force is 19.62. So in solving that, we can get the value for net force, which is 10.38 newtons. Now that we have the net force and we have the mass, we can get the value for acceleration. So simply substitute the value. So here we can use this formula again. Net force is equals to 10.38, mass is 10, and acceleration is missing. So we can divide both sides by 10. We can get the acceleration, guys. So 10 divided by 10 cancel out, and 10.38 divided by 10 is 1.038 meter per second squared. That is our value for acceleration, guys. And we can round this off to the nearest two decimal places, since this is already a final answer. So this is 1.04 meter per second squared.